Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today. Chapter 763, Day of Announcement 1. The letter was relatively short. However, the message was clear. We strongly urge you to surrender the ring without delay. While we are prepared to offer appropriate compensation for its return, refusal to comply will inevitably lead to consequences, ones we would prefer to avoid, but are fully prepared to enact if necessary. This was how I'd summarize the entire letter. It was also here that I came to realize why everything had been so easy. The blacksmith, he had been pardoned from the start. He most likely made a deal with them where they'd let him go in exchange for giving me this letter. But were things really this simple? Why would the Empire just hand me a letter? Was there more to it? There's definitely more to it. I could tell that they deemed the ring on my finger far more important than fixing the relics themselves. In that regard, I also knew why. At the end of the day, what I believed they were truly interested in wasn't the relics, but the blood contained within them. Whether this was something that the Emperor wanted or the god that was working with him, I wasn't sure. However, this was my most likely guess about the situation. Is everything okay? I caught a glimpse of the letter, and, hearing Leon's words and seeing his expression, I put the letter in my pocket. I wouldn't be making a face like this if I were. I also started to worry about Caius a little. It was clear from his actions that something was happening within the Empire. The fact that he'd need to pretend to cooperate with them was telling enough. I'd like to contact him, but he's most likely monitored. Things look fine for now, but I'm not sure how long that can keep going. This entire situation felt weird to me. The worst part of it all was that I now felt like I had a target on my back. I knew that the letter wasn't just a warning from the Empire. They had most likely already started doing something, and the letter was merely some sort of formality. Leon. I looked at Leon. Does your skill detect anything? My skill, too. Yes. Anything off with the situation? That's. As if realizing something, Leon frowned. However, after a while he shook his head. No, nothing. I don't sense anything. I see. I bit my lips, trying my best to figure out the situation. Just as I fell into my thoughts, Linus's voice chimed in. What are you trying to figure out? That's nothing for you to be concerned with, I replied, dismissing him to some extent. I didn't think he'd be able to help us. But Leon thought otherwise. The Empire sent Julian a letter. They're looking for his ring. The letter is pretty formal from what I've gathered, and it looks like they're willing to pay some money for the ring, but in case of rejection, I'm afraid. They're going to try and take it by force? Linus interjected. Yes, pretty much, Leon replied, adding something else. And the two of us suspect that they've already done that. But we can't prove it. Oh, Linus's brows furrowed tightly as he finally understood the situation. In the end, he turned his attention towards my pocket. May I see the letter? He asked after a moment of hesitation. I frowned, but I didn't know what I'd lose from it as I gave it to him. Do you have something in mind? Maybe. Linus answered, opening up the letter and fixing the creases. He then began to read it as Leon, and I stared at him in silence. Eventually, under my surprised eyes, Linus's eyes glowed a certain hue. It looked to be between azure and white. The moment his eyes glowed, the letter turned transparent. It was at that moment that we all noticed the black threads woven into the letter, spiraling like some insidious parasite, each tendril shifting and coiling with a disturbing semblance of life. Oi! My eyes couldn't help but widen at the sight. What sort of shit? Linus suddenly tossed the paper to the side as a tendril moved towards his hand and latched onto it. I hurriedly reached for his hand, but by the time I did, the tendril was gone. A stifling silence followed. All eyes were drawn to the letter on the floor. Hiss! Drawing a cold breath, I looked at Linus. What was the skill that you just used? Eyes of Truth. Latest content published on noelfire.net. Linus replied shortly after, pointing at his eyes. It comes from a terror-ranked bone I acquired not too long ago. It allows me to see through things that the normal I can't. That's. I pinched the middle of my brows after a moment of thought. Thinking back to the time when we were running away, and everything else, I nearly felt like slapping him on the back of his head. However, as if reading my thoughts, Linus interjected. The skill is rather easy to detect when directed towards a certain direction. Even if I were to use it to see through the walls and tell if someone was present, they'd know it as well. It's still a rather new ability, so I don't have much control over it. That makes sense. I knew firsthand how troublesome some abilities were, especially Step of Suppression. Back before its evolution, it took me a long time to develop the skill properly. The same went for the threads. Maybe I can do even more with plus Eye of Existence. I need to practice more with it. Yet again, I was reminded of all the things that I needed to do. Let's leave that aside for now. I shifted my focus back onto the letter, my brows knitting tightly as I recalled the black tendrils within the simple letter. What exactly was that? And did it enter my body? I immediately tried to check my body, but regardless of how I looked, I couldn't sense a single thing. This made me frown. I knew that whatever had happened wasn't simple, and yet I couldn't do anything to check. No, wait. I looked at Linus. Check my body. Huh. Use your skill on my body. Check if the weird black thing entered my body. But what does it matter? You're my brother. Don't be weird. After pulling a few strange faces, Linus's eyes suddenly began to glow. A chill swept through my body almost instantly, and in that moment, I understood why he'd been so reluctant to use the skill. It was quite obvious that he was using it. It would practically give our location away. That said, I can see that the skill is extremely useful. If he can manage to train it to the point where he can do it subtly and without anyone noticing, I can see it become an extremely valuable asset. Oi! Suddenly seeing Linus's face changed. My heart sank. Did you find something? Did it enter my body? Where is it? 2-inch. Linus looked at me, his expression a mix of horror and shock. Eventually, taking a step back, he swallowed nervously. What? Spit it out. I started to grow annoyed. Just what? Everywhere. He mumbled, his expression growing even more horrified. I can see the tendrils all over your body. All semblance of thought left my mind in that moment. Staring at Linus, I eventually focused my gaze on the ring on my finger. In the end, it wasn't like I wasn't affected. I just never knew about it. I drew a cold breath, trying my best to remain calm. When I looked up, I saw the worried look on Leon's face. And just as he was about to say something, Linus continued. But it's strange. What's strange? Leon asked, turning his entire attention to Linus. In the end, with a frown marring his features, Linus commented. While his entire body is covered in the weird black tendrils, none of them are attacking his body. It's almost as if they can't. No, wait, I see very small amounts trying to, but it's extremely small. Linus ruffled his hair in annoyance. I don't know. This is way too complicated. Linus turned his attention towards Leon. You, on the other hand, don't have as many as him. But you do have some. But as opposed to Julian, they're entering your body and fusing with your bloodstream. Thankfully, the quantity is much lower. What? 2? Leon's face changed. I have them 100? Just a little bit. I'm not very different. One entered my not too long ago. The room fell silent shortly after that. Neither of us made a sound as I took a deep breath and relaxed my mind. I started to get an idea of what was going on. A lot of things started to become clear in my mind. It's like the blacksmith said. The relics are dangerous. They are called evil for a reason. They slowly corrupt the minds of everyone who wears them. The most shocking part is that they are incredibly hard to detect. If not for Linus, I would have never have known that I had such things inside of my body. It was worrying to know. But thankfully it didn't look like it could affect me. At least not to a great degree. And I knew the exact reason. T's most likely got to do with the blood inside of my body. My original blood was preventing the tendrils from entering my body. However, given that I didn't have the full amount of blood inside of me, some still managed to get into my body. This brought to rise several questions. In particular, when I had lost all of the blood, what happened then? In the moment that I went to the mirror dimension and adapted a different identity, what exactly happened to me? Did the tendrils fuse with my body? So, to what degree? I started to grow incredibly worried. I had to find a way to check. Thankfully, I knew the perfect person who could do this. She was someone that I trusted quite a lot, and my fiancé. After a lot of thought over the past months, and musing over her situation for quite some time, I had long made up my mind. In order to make sure no misunderstandings came to rise, and to have her help me, I planned on coming clean to her. Tomorrow, I planned on telling her everything about me. More chapters in Buyers Club for TMT. Chapter 764 Day of Announcement 2. I was just tired. Tired of it all. The lies. The struggle. The pain. I was tired of everything. That was why I had made up my mind. I planned on coming clean to Delilah. I wasn't sure if this was great timing, especially when taking into account what she had previously said to me, but after a lot of thought, I realized that by not coming clean, I would eventually be making things more difficult for myself further down the line. Even if things end up going badly, they won't be as bad as her finding out further down in the future. She could also be a lot more understanding now than before. I wasn't sure. However, this was my plan. I'll approach things carefully before telling her everything. Everything else would be up to her. However, I really did need her help. I wanted to better understand what the black tendrils inside my body were. And if they were connected to the outer beings, could she do anything about it? You're going to wear the same clothes from the right? Turning my head, I spotted Leon walking down the stairs of the estate. He was dressed in a white suit that accentuated his physique, fitting him impeccably. For a brief moment, it almost seemed like he was glowing. Disgusting. What did you say? Nothing. No, you did say something. Maybe I did. I looked at myself in the mirror. I didn't really know how to dress, and didn't really think going over the top was going to be a good idea. As such, after a little bit of thought, I decided to dress myself in a formal black suit. One that looked both elegant and fitted me well. Are you two leaving? Another person appeared on the stairs. Unlike us, he wasn't wearing a suit. His face was filed with sweat, and his hair stuck to his forehead. It looked like he had just finished training. Yes, young master. Leon answered not a moment later, fixing his collar at the same time. The event will start in a bit. It's best if the two of us leave now. Oh, Linus nodded calmly, his thoughts unknown. But in that moment, staring at him, it almost felt as though he was disappointed. Did he want to come too? Well, technically speaking, it's my engagement. No, never mind. It's best if he stays here. I retrieved a couple of papers from my ring and handed them over to Linus. These are... Linus looked at the papers in confusion. I gave him a brief overview a moment later. They're the papers that Father left behind. They detail everything about the territory and the future plans of the estate. Since I'm going to be gone, I need someone to watch over the estate. I won't be gone for long, but you should still take these. It's a good way for you to learn more about our territory and how to manage it. The truth was, I hated managing the territory. It was boring and took too much of my time. I couldn't afford to waste hours managing the territory. In that much time, I could have easily spent most of it practicing and trying to overcome my current wall. This was why Linus was essential. Google search nove1fire.net. I planned on having him do all of this nonsense in my stead. Make sure you learn all of this, okay? But it's okay. I believe in you. I patted Linus on the shoulder, amidst his confusion. But within his confusion, I could even see that he was subtly touched. He was probably thinking some sort of nonsense like, he trusts me with this? He actually wants me to manage the territory? Is he planning on giving it to me? I wanted him to think like that. Only this way would he work to the bone for M. You're disgusting. A voice broke through my thoughts. Looking at Leon and seeing the disgusted look on his face, I blinked innocently. What suddenly brought this? You know why. I don't. You're planning on using Lynn. How should we go there? Do you think carriage is good? I was thinking of using Pebble. Although it's not allowed, I think if it's above the Duke's territory, it should be fine. Plus, what else can they, Hm? Leon? Why are you on your knees? I took a step back. However, the moment I did, Leon placed his hand over his heart and lowered his head. This loyal servant is at your service. If you tell me to go west, I'll go west. If you tell me to go east, I'll go east. If you tell me to. All right, stop. I stopped Leon before he could continue on with his nonsense. I felt shivers just looking at him. We'll go with Pebble. Let's go. Leon's face remained straight as he lowered his head further. As you wish, sire. Can you stop? Yes, your royal highness. No, seriously. I understand, your majesty. Plus bulk. Plus FWAP 70. A massive shadow cast over the forest beneath. Its size dwarfed everything around it, and its presence felt unmatched by anything nearby. It commanded the entire space, drawing the gaze of everyone below as heads turned upwards in awe. At least, this was how it felt to Leon as he stood on top of the massive dragon, his clothes fluttering in the wind. Finally. He almost felt emotional at the moment. Sex thumples. How long had it been since he had not taken a carriage to travel far? Hell, even trains were better, and yet, he hardly traveled in them. But this was way better than he had expected. Standing on top of a dragon and overlooking the land beneath, he felt strangely powerful. Yes, this is how it should have been from the start. Leon extended both of his hands and felt the wind. So fresh. Stop being a weirdo. We're about to arrive soon. We should be there in a couple of minutes. I don't want the people below us to think we're weirdos that pose in the air. Cutting the fun was none other than Julian. Leon's face scrunched up as he lowered his hands and looked at him. Bah, can't I just enjoy the moment? No, you can't. I'm still thinking about what happened with the old man. Leon's face turned serious upon hearing Julian's words. He also found the entire situation suspicious, and as he lowered his head and stared at his sword, he felt a certain sense of unease. Sex thumples. I've already had Linus check it. From what he said, the sword is clean. There's nothing wrong with it. From what I can tell, the old man isn't exactly with them. He most likely struck a deal with them to hand over the letter to us. In fact, he's most likely affected as well. You're right. Julian nodded, his brows furrowing as he thought more about the situation. Leon stared at him in silence, his hair fluttering in the wind. In the end, he walked toward Julian and patted him on the shoulder. You should relax for now. You're about to be announced as the fiancé of one of the most popular people within the Empire. You shouldn't think about this stuff today. You're right. Julian nodded, patting his clothes while turning his attention towards the land beneath as his eyes squinted. Bah. Thump. We're a minute away. Let's go down now. As Julian pressed his foot against the dragon, they slowly started to descend before finally landing on the ground beneath. Thankfully, there was no one present to witness the scene as the two dismounted and Pebble turned into a cat, hopping on Julian's shoulder while licking its paw. Let's go. Bah. Thump. Bah. Thumps plus. Leon traced Julian's back with his eyes as he took a step to follow him. However, right as he did, his expression froze. Bah. Thump. Bah. Thump. Bah. Thump. His blood ran cold, and his face paled considerably. Bah. Thump. Bah. Thump. Bah. Thump. Bah. Thump. Bah. Thump. Bah. Thumped plus despite trying his best to remain calm, Leon couldn't at all. The world around him started to spin, and his face paled further. Even breathing was starting to become difficult as he staggered forward. Leon, too. Finally taking note of the situation, Julian's expression changed, and he rushed back. What's going on? Why are you acting like this? Is everything okay? Leon? Julian tried his best to shake Leon out of it, but whatever he did was useless. What the hell is going on? Bah. Thump. Bah. Thumps plus. 1. Leon clutched at his shirt, fighting for breath. It was as if an immense weight pressed down on his chest, smothering him, stealing even the words from his throat. He could hardly think or speak. Julian's expression turned graver and graver as he stared at the current state of Leon, especially when he saw the saliva that was dripping out of his mouth. Was this because of the black tendrils that had previously entered their body? Was that what this was? Julian pressed his hand against Leon's arm. However, nothing. He didn't feel anything at all. Julian bit his lips, his head flicking towards the cat that didn't need to be told anything before dashing away to look for help. Just what the fuck is happening? Julian clenched his teeth, feeling completely thrown off by the situation. He was just fine a few moments prior. What happened? Why was he suddenly acting like this? Suddenly mustering up his strength, Leon reached up to grasp Julian's shirt. Julian's expression changed abruptly upon seeing the desperation in Leon's gaze. His eyes were bloodshot, and his lips were trembling. It was almost as if he was trying to say something to him. Julian's breathing quickened as he used the 5th level of emotive magic. He wanted to see the current state of Leon's emotions. But right as he did, his breath left his body. Purple. Leon's entire body was covered in purple. Never before had he seen such purple before, and Julian's mind blanked. Leave. Leon's words echoed in his ears, his hand tightly clenching against his shirt. We need to leave this place. Every hair on his body stood on end. At this very moment, his instincts were screaming at him, far stronger than they had ever been in his life. Bah. Thump. Dread. All he felt was dread. Bah. Thump. Bah. Thumps plus. One that was eating at his mind. They had to leave. More chapters in Buyer's Club for TMT. Chapter 765 Day of Announcement 3. 1. Leon continued to scream, his hand clutching his shirt as saliva spilled from his mouth. Hey. I tried to keep him steady, but my efforts were in vain. Regardless of what I did, Leon didn't seem to get better at all. In fact, his condition only grew worse as his face paled even further. Leave. He continued to mumble the same thing over and over again. I had long understood that this was most likely his innate skill at play. But why was he reacting like this? From the previous times, it had never been like this. Staring at Leon and seeing the utter dread on his face, my heart squeezed. Just one look and I could see that this situation was beyond serious. But I looked ahead, towards the area where the event was going to be hosted, and I bit my lips. This was supposed to be an important day. One where the entire world would know about my relationship with Delilah, and we'd no longer have to hide it. However, it became painfully clear that I couldn't stay any longer. I had to leave. This was the first time that I had ever seen Leon like this. Even though a good part of me told me to stay, I knew that I couldn't do that. That'd be irresponsible of me. I have to leave. I have to. Wait. Just as I turned to face the opposite direction, Leon grasped my shoulder. I raised my brow in surprise, and just before I could mutter any words, Leon spoke. And not there. Huh. I looked back at Leon. What are you, too? My shock only heightened when I saw Leon look around. His face grew even paler as his eyes started to shake. Thereafter, he began to mumble things to himself. No, not there as well. Why not there as well? Nowhere. His breathing grew more and more frantic. Fresh chapters posted on Novel Fire Net. He was starting to hyperventilate. Leon. I tried to snap him out of it, but he brushed me away as he continued to look around, his hair sticking to his forehead as sweat poured down from the side of his face. Staring at him, I found myself at a loss. This was the first time that I had ever seen him like this. But I also knew that I had to act quickly. Without waiting for Leon to say anything, I pressed my hand against his shoulder. I opened my eyes wide while staring at the purple that dominated his entire body. I need to calm him down. At this current state, I can't understand what is happening. Taking deep and steady breaths, I poured other emotions inside his body, from joy to even surprise. I tried my best to combat the fear that had taken over his body. But what the hell? It was to my utter shock to see just how deep the fear ran through his body. It was primal and settled deep inside his body. Just by how much his body was shaking, I could tell that it had rooted deeply inside of his mind. Just what the hell is going on? I started to worry myself. I poured even more emotions inside his body, but it was almost as if he were a bottomless pit. The emotions I poured into him, the greater the fear became. It had gotten to the point where I had no choice but to step back while staring at him. Don't. Can't leave. And not there. Not anywhere. He started to slur on his words, but despite that, I managed to get the message clearly. A small breath escaped my body as I started to feel weak all of a sudden. Staring towards the sky that was starting to darken, the fading lights of the sun bathed my entire body in them. I didn't know when, but I unknowingly started to shiver. And that was when Leon's words fully dawned on me. Regardless of where I go, I can't escape it. Something was coming for me. Something that I couldn't escape. Regardless of where I went. I swallowed silently. Plus, ba. Thump. Ba. Thumps plus. But what? What was coming for me? I took another breath and looked towards the distance. Plus rustle. Rustlet plus. It wasn't long before the bushes rusted and several figures came out. A black cat appeared behind them. What happened? What's going on, too? They spotted Leon at once and hurried to his side without hesitation. I just stood there, staring at them while also looking at my surroundings. Thereafter, I looked at my hands. My shivering hands. I can get out of this, right? I hope so. But why? Why did my heart feel so heavy? Please stay here. The event has yet to start. We're currently monitoring your night situation. Other than a bit of shock, he looks to be fine. It shouldn't take long for him to recover. Thank you. Immediately after the people came to help, we were escorted into the Duke's main residence, and the place where the event was going to be hosted. The place was grand. Almost as grand as the royal estate. Unfortunately, I didn't have the time to properly explore the place. Everything felt like a blur to me. Before I knew it, I was escorted to a different room and taken care of by the staff. While none of them seemed to be aware of the fact that I was soon to be part of this family, they still treated me well. They had most likely been told to take good care of me. I'll give you more information when he wakes up. For now, you should take some rest. There's still some time before the event starts. I nodded softly, watching the man slowly leave the room. Percent clank, 1%. A tense silence followed right after. I remained seated on the chair, blankly staring at the ceiling while thinking about the situation. In the end, I still ended up here. Leon had warned me to leave. I planned to leave, but there's nowhere that I can run to. From Leon's expression or words, I couldn't run away from whatever was coming at me. Yes, things had been too quiet recently. Everything had been going extremely smoothly after my return from the mirror dimension. It was bound to come. I had long been aware of this. But at the same time, I wanted things to progress smoothly for a little bit longer. I wanted my life not to be a constant struggle. I wanted to rest. I wanted to. Who am I kidding? Too. I rubbed my hair while leaning forward. It was obvious that I wasn't someone who could afford the leisure known as resting. Yeah, let's stop thinking about resting. Let me figure out the situation first. There was no use thinking about nonsense like resting. Since I was presented with this situation, I needed to quickly figure out what was going to happen and how to deal with tea. Let's see. I sat back on the chair and closed my eyes, musing over all of my skills. It's been a while since I've used Eyes of the Seer. The cooldown is off, and even if it isn't, I can just ask Leon to give me the chalice. That way, I can figure out if anything happens before it happens. In fact, I should ask him later when he wakes up. The skill lasted for an hour. I'd have to time it carefully. But what else could I do in order to better understand the situation? It'd be nice if I could have a vision. It's been a while since I've had a vision about the future. Did I lose the ability to see the future since I've yet to receive all of the blood? Or is the timing just not right yet? I was extremely curious about this aspect. When exactly would I experience a vision? Not only that, but would I be able to control the visions in the future? But when would that happen? 2. Is it when Eyes of the Seer evolves? Maybe that's when. It had happened before when I had absorbed the blood from the Pope. My skill evolved to Eyes of the Seer. In that case, the next step became obvious to me. I needed to absorb the remaining blood from Cithras in order for the skill to evolve. Once that happened, I'd be able to use the visions as I willed. Or at least that was what I'd hoped would happen. It would help me out quite a lot. Okay, since I don't have a vision, what should I do? How should I proceed? Leaning forward, I ruffled my hair in frustration. The unease grew with each passing second, and I unknowingly started to panic as I continued to recall Leon's expressions and words just moments prior. This was the very first time I had ever seen him like this. Was he even like this when something happened to me and I supposedly died? I started chewing on my nails, my heart speeding up. Let's think. Let's think. Let's. My words suddenly came to a pause as the world around me suddenly froze. 2. Plus ba. Thump. Ba. Thump. Ba. Thump. My heart started to race inside my chest. It was loud, taking over the entire surroundings as it was all that I could hear. The hair on my body stood on end, and just as the breath inside of my body began to fade, my vision changed completely. By the time my vision returned, I found myself before an all too familiar setting. Wait, this? Buildings lay in ruin. A heavy scent of blood and ash filled the air. I recognized this place. I had seen it more than once. No, not this place. This vision. It was the very first vision that I had experienced. Why was I seeing this? Rumble. Rumble. A distant rumble immediately caught my attention, prompting my head to turn in the direction of the sound. It was also then that I heard a voice. It's about time. I thought they'd be slower. That of my own. L%. A distant building shattered not long after, and from within, a particular figure emerged. Aoife. I finally found Yout. Her voice screeched, the hatred contained within it more evident than ever. I stared at her, finding myself unable to move or react. The only thing I could do was stare. Stare as the vision continued. Played exactly as I had remembered. All until that moment. The moment when it all finally clicked inside my mind. The moment when I understood the reason for Leon's reaction, and the moment that the vision ended. Sitting on the familiar chair and staring towards the ceiling, I smiled. Not out of happiness, but out of resignation. This was the moment I understood. There's no escaping it. What was about to happen was inevitable. Couldn't run from it. This was my fate. But thankfully I had time. Time to properly enjoy this gathering. I held onto my face, feeling my chest tremble. More chapters in Buyer's Club for TMT. Chapter 766 Day of Announcement 4. A pitch black darkness. One that felt entirely suffocating, dragging him deeper and deeper into it. That was how Leon felt. Regardless of how much he tried to fight the darkness, it clung to him, dragging him deeper and deeper into the depths of the abyss beneath. He struggled his best, but his efforts were in vain. The darkness won, and his world turned black. His eyes fluttered open, and the darkness receded, giving way to the harsh brilliance of the chandelier above. A sharp pain lingered in his mind as his face scrunched up. His memories were foggy, and he struggled to properly understand what had happened. Until, "You're awake." A certain voice broke him out of his thoughts. Lifting his head, Leon's gaze fell on Julian, and in that moment, as if everything came crashing down on his mind, the memories of what had happened moments before passing out surfaced in his mind. Ah! He nearly began shouting, only for him to be stopped by Julian as he pushed his chest down on the bed. I know what you're trying to say. There's no need to say anything more. But, I know. Don't worry. Julian smiled. His face was calm, seemingly unbothered by the entire situation. Did you forget who I am, too? His sudden words caused Leon's eyes to widen. That's right, The sudden recollection was all he needed to finally calm down as Julian breathed a sigh of relief and looked for a seat to sit down. After a moment of silence, Julian began speaking. There's no need to worry about people listening in. I've told the people to give us some time to talk. As Julian spoke, his face retained a smile. It was a smile of self-assurance. One that wanted to say, everything is going to be okay. But Leon was all too familiar with that smile. He had known Julian long enough to understand it. His heart sank. I can see from your face that you don't believe me at all. No, I believe you. About, too, that nobody is around. S0, what about the don't worry part? Oh, that. I don't believe you at all. Figured. Julian clicked his tongue, sitting back on the chair while shaking his head and mumbling things like, what am I supposed to do at this point? Can't even take my words for things. Despite Julian's best attempt at lighting up the mood, Leon's face remained serious. Now is not the time for jokes. He could still recall the palpable sensation that he had felt not too long ago. It clung to his mind, threatening to consume it even now. He didn't understand what it was, but it was the first time he had ever experienced something like this. A dread so powerful that it almost felt like it was impossible to escape. Regardless of where he went, it was impossible. Julian, we need to quickly leave this place. No, we need to look for the Chancellor. Or maybe someone strong. I don't know. We need to escape as soon as possible. I don't know if you used your powers or not, but Stop. Julian stopped Leon mid-speech. Leon's face fell, and just as he was about to argue, his eyes landed on the smile that lingered on Julian's face. That smile. Leon's heart sank completely. It was the first time he had ever seen that smile from Julian. It was one of both acceptance and resignation. No, but I'm not going to die. Julian started, the smile lingering on his face. I can promise you that this won't be the same as last time. I'm not going to die. You're not, too. Leon could see it from Julian's face that he wasn't lying. In that case, I'm not going to die. Julian reassured once more. Leon could see from his face that Julian wasn't lying, and that was all he needed to feel a sigh of relief. If you're not going to die then, too. Julian just smiled. He didn't answer. Instead, he took something out of his ring. A long black sword that made Leon's eyes jump up in surprise. He had seen the sword before and couldn't help but feel that it was even better than the one he currently had. This is, too, for you. Julian handed the sword to Leo. The action caused Leon's face to change, his eyes widening as he looked at Julian. Wait, what? He wasn't stupid. He could tell the value of the sword at a glance. It was beyond anything he had ever had. Why was he? Too. Just take it. You'll need it. No. Julian stopped, his eyes flickering as he looked at Leon. I'll need it. Wah. Just take it. Julian shoved the sword to the still stunned Leon. Like I said, I'm not going to die. However, there will be a lot of things that I'll need you to do in the meantime. Me too. Leon looked at Julian with a blank look, his gaze falling on the sword in his grasp. And it was then that Julian's face turned extremely serious. So serious that for a moment, it left Leon flustered. Listen carefully to what I'm about to say. This will probably be the only time that I'll ever get to tell you, so pay close attention. You're the only person who can get me out of this situation. And this is also the reason why I'm giving you the sword. Leon swallowed nervously, his face changing between a mix of confusion and worry. In the end, he forced out a word. Me? Yes. Julian nodded, letting out a small breath before explaining to him his plan and situation. As he did, Leon's face gradually grew paler and paler, until his entire face was completely white as he looked at Julian in both shock and horror. As his lips parted, no words came out of his mouth. Julian stared at the sight before patting him on the shoulder. I'll be counting on you, Leon. You're the only one that I can trust. And with such words, Julian turned around and left, leaving the room in a state of complete and utter silence. Within that silence, Leon remained still. Not one word or sound escaped his lips as he blankly stared at the door. Coming out of Leon's room, I looked at the guards around me before nodding. I'm done. You should be leaving soon. Thank you. After thanking them, I headed towards my own room. It wasn't anything fancy. Just a small room on the second floor of the estate, just tall enough to give me a view of the area beneath. The sun had already dipped, and the sky had turned dark. Bright lights light up the surroundings as people walked in and out of the estate. Large carriages parked outside the venue, and people of all nobilities entered the estate. I could tell with just one look at how massive the entire event was. It's almost like every important figure of every empire is coming. It was funny to think about. So many people coming for an engagement announcement. I wonder what kind of faces they will make when they find out who the fiancé is. Would it look like they had eaten shit? That seemed like the most likely case. Just the thought made me want to laugh as I lowered my head to stare at my arm, right where a four-leaf clover tattoo appeared. The moment I stared at it, the smile faded from my face. First leaf, emotion wheel. Second leaf, past emotion. Third leaf, leap back in time. Fourth leaf, leap forward in time. I was quite familiar with the first three leaves. I had used them several times in the past. The only one that remained an enigma to me was the fourth leaf. I had only used it once before, and in that time I found myself traveling to the future. Thinking about it, that future is none other than the one that I saw in the vision not too long ago. I laughed when thinking about it. How many times was it now that I'd seen that very same scenario? I had lost count by now. By now, I understood the weight of that moment. That wasn't just a turning point, but also the start of something. Everything. Ho. Taking a deep breath, I turned around, and when I did, I paused. Behind me stood a man in a pristine white suit, the cut accentuating his white hair and striking features. His gaze swept over me from head to toe before Orson gave a slow, satisfied nod. Not bad. Looks like you're ready for today. Lamb. I was more than ready, but at the same time I felt a little nervous. It's good that you're ready. Today is going to be a very important day. Not just for you but for the Empire. My simple announcement can completely shift the tide of the battle for the throne. Although father-in-law spoke lightly, I could feel the solemnness in his gaze and words. Indeed, the moment the announcement was made, the world would understand where the Rosenberg household stood. As someone who belonged to Aoife's faction, it would only be natural that people would think the Rosenberg household would ally itself with her. Fresh chapters posted on novelfire.net. And they weren't wrong. But there will be a lot of eyes on you once all of this happens. And many of those eyes aren't going to be nice to you. I'm just here to ask if you're ready for the backlash that you're going to receive. Ready? I nearly laughed. I wasn't ready at all. But not because I didn't want to, but because I couldn't care about such a trivial thing at the moment. Not when the inevitable was going to happen. The only thing I could do at the moment was enjoy the little time that I had left. Why am I speaking like I'm going to die? I'm not going to die. It's more like the opposite. But I'm just worried about what comes next. I sighed. A real mess was waiting for me. Well, it looks like you're more or less ready. That makes me feel relieved. Feeling a pat over my shoulder, I raised my head to look at Orson as he turned to face the window to stare at the people beneath. After a simple glance, he excused himself. Go out when you're ready. The event will start in about 30 minutes. Once it begins, you'll know what to do. In the meantime, get some rest. I'll handle the rest. I understand. Thanking the Duke, I lowered my head. By the time I raised my head again, he was gone. I didn't mind this and instead felt more relieved. I guess I finally understand where Delilah got her habit from. Now that I think about it. Where is she? I wanted to go to her immediately. There was quite a bit that I wanted to talk to her about, but I held back. Not yet, I mumbled, closing my eyes and taking a deep breath. I'll do it after the event is over and we have time for ourselves. If I had been hesitant to tell her the truth in the past, that was no longer the case. I had already made up my mind. I was going to tell her everything, even if she didn't like it. This was because, my breath shook, and a bitter smile formed across my face as I sat down and covered my face. I'm doing it because I have no choice but to. Plus, ba. Thump. Ba. Thumps plus. My heart thumped in my mind. More chapters in Buyers Club for TMT. Chapter 767 Dance 1. The venue was starting to fill. I could see a lot of familiar faces entering the place. Be it those from this empire or those from other empires. Nobody appeared to want to miss this announcement. Who? Taking a steady breath, I forced myself to calm down. My gaze lingered on my arm, the faint sting still present, before shifting to the knife next to me. The blood still stained its sharp end as the cut on my arm slowly began to heal. I leaned back on the chair, feeling the lingering pain at the back of my head. I wasn't doing this because I wanted to. This step was something that I had to do. It was necessary. I should be recovered enough. Swiping my hand and putting everything away, I stood up, staggering a couple of steps before collecting myself. Turning towards the nearest mirror, I looked at my own reflection and paused. I looked like shit. With my hair plastered to my forehead and my complexion unusually pale, I looked dreadful. It looked like I had just recovered from a high fever. I smelled myself. Thankfully, I don't smell. It was important that I didn't smell on this occasion. I wasn't worried about my appearance since I knew that I'd be fine in no time, but I certainly couldn't smell bad. Human. Just then, several figures appeared on the balcony of the room. Turning my head, I saw a cat, an owl, and a crab. The sight made me smile. What a lineup. You guys are here. It had been a while since I had last seen them all together. Almighty and Wobbles had been doing their own thing lately, especially Wobbles, as it had been going around the entire empire exploring the world. Given its strength, I wasn't worried about its safety. You called us here. Did something happen? No, nothing much. I just wanted to see the three of you. Is the human okay? I could see the confusion in their faces as they looked at me. It was quite a funny sight. I brushed my hair back and walked to the balcony, leaning against the cool marble railing. The night breeze brushed over me as I watched people gathering below, making their way into the venue. It's been quite some time since I got to know the three of you. Maybe not so much with Wobbles, but with Almighty and Pebbles it's been a long while. I thought back to the past, to the dragon that had once terrorized the small town of Eleanor, and had later almost corrupted my entire mind, to the three that had cast an illusion and almost devoured me and everyone within it. Thinking about how I met the two of them, I couldn't help but shiver slightly. You both really almost had me killed. An awkward silence settled in, broken only when I let out a quiet chuckle and turned my gaze to the distant moon. For some reason, I felt at peace at the moment. I wasn't nervous about what was to come or the big announcement. I just felt at ease. I need the three of you to do me a favor. The three stayed quiet, but I could feel from their silence that they had picked up on something in my body language. In its own way, this was my farewell to them. 1LL very likely be gone for a while. Before any of the three could say a word, I continued. I'm not sure how long I'll be gone for, but I'll be gone for a while. In the meantime, I'd like to ask a favor for the three of you. Pulling my gaze away from the moon, I finally looked at the three of them. I want the three of you to head into the mirror dimension and stay as far from the main world as you can. I don't know for how long, but I'll let you know when it's safe to return. This place. I paused, my chest tightening. This place is going to change a lot. It's better if you're not here when it happens. Focus on growing stronger. If you can, lend your aid to an Az or An. I'm sure they'd welcome you. When the time comes, I'll find each and every one of you. I can promise you that. I found the way I was speaking to be funny. It was almost as if I was speaking like I was going to die and never come back. That was the furthest thing from the truth. I wasn't going to die, nor was I leaving for good. In fact, everything would probably resolve in a matter of minutes for me. But that was the problem. That only applied to me. Holding onto the handrail and leaning back, I closed my eyes gently. I basked in the silence and breeze until I opened up my eyes again. Another thing. I opened my lips, expressing my last order to them. Unless you know it's me, don't even think about interacting with me. Fancy seeing you here, princess. The moment Aoife stepped into the venue, chandeliers casting their glow across the polished marble floors, she was immediately swarmed by nobles. Butlers and maids drifted about in the background at the same time, serving drinks and snacks to the guests present. It's a great pleasure to be in your presence, princess. It's nice to see you, princess. Aoife felt nauseated by the smiles of the nobles around her. They felt both greasy and unpleasant. And yet, she didn't show her disgust. Instead, she smiled at them while interacting with one individually. Had it been the her of the past, she would have most likely dismissed them with a cold grunt. But she was different now. Unlike in the past, she couldn't afford to dismiss anyone. It wasn't just a matter of appearances. Each noble, no matter how insignificant they seemed, carried a potential advantage in the looming battle for the throne. She simply couldn't afford to dismiss everyone. And hence, she found herself in a rather troublesome situation. Thankfully, in times of need, there were a couple of people who could help her. Oh, shit! Plus X splashed. Wine spilled on the floor. Hayak! Plus X splash 1. Even more wine spilled, hitting the dresses of several of the nobles present. Immediately, all eyes turned in the direction of the culprit as a white-haired girl stood frozen on the spot. Her eyes fixed on a particular noble whose entire clothes had been drenched in wine. The source of this content is nvelfire.net. Kira rubbed her apologetically. Sorry. I thought you were trying to touch my butt. It was just a reflex. Aoife's lips twitched upon hearing Kira's words, but she still took the opportunity created by her to slip away. In the end, she managed to find a more secluded spot where a lock of purple hair greeted her sight. "You two saved me there." Evelyn blinked and shifted her gaze to Aoife, taking a slow bite of the snack in her hand. Then, spotting Kira in the distance struggling to help a noble to their feet, realization dawned on her as she nodded and spoke with her mouth full. NWO pauvreblem. So she didn't help. Aoife felt a sudden urge to slap Evelyn, barely restraining herself as she glanced around. Her gaze eventually settled on a familiar figure, and, as if sensing them too, Leon began making his way toward them. His complexion didn't look very good, but as he arrived before them, he managed to force out a smile. "How have you been?" "As best as I can be. Things did get better for me after Julian won the right, but it also made me a lot busier." The right offered her a chance. A small opening she could exploit to gain ground in the succession battle. That was all it was. It didn't advance her, it only created the possibility of advancement. If she failed to seize it, the gap would vanish. That was why she was so busy. She had been spending all of her time taking advantage of the opportunity presented to her. This was also the main reason why the Empire had been so quiet over the past month or so. It was because of the secret battles that had been going on between her and her brother. Thankfully, I've managed to capitalize on the opportunity given to me. I've still got a lot of things to do, but I can't afford to miss this event. Aoife's expression turned extremely serious. This moment might be a turning point for the future. I have to be extremely vigilant and try to get the fiancé on my side. If I can get the Rosenberg household on my side, then the succession battle is as good as over. Aoife's fists clenched as she spoke, her heart pounding against her chest under the weight of the moment. She couldn't afford to miss this chance. This was a massive turning point in the battle. Seeing her like that, Leon's lips twitched. If only she knew. Now that I think about it, does anyone know who the mysterious fiancé is? As Evelyn chimed in, Leon's lips pressed even more tightly. Aoife shook her head. No, there's been no news yet. I've tried my best to find out, but came up empty. The Duke seems determined to keep it a secret. Whoever it is, they're likely strong, powerful even, and probably her age or older. I've cross-checked several names and a few stood out. I've already made contact with them to establish connections. I'd rather be safe than caught off guard. Leon's face twitched a couple of more times. If only they knew. Whatever the case is, he's someone that we must have on our side at all costs. The three continued their conversation, and eventually Kira joined in, keeping the dialogue going. Aoife and the others even asked about Julian, but Leon just shrugged. He's most likely sick. In truth, he didn't know as well. He was just as curious as they were, but recalling their recent conversation, his heart grew heavy, even if it was eating at his mind with every second that passed. And then, "Welcome, everyone." A voice rang out across the venue, capturing every eye. Suddenly, a man appeared at the center, his striking white hair and sharp, handsome features commanding the attention of everyone present. With a smile that seemed neither kind nor overbearing, Orson's gaze swept the surroundings. A heavy and suffocating silence followed suit. In that moment, everyone held their breath as they looked at the Duke. His presence meant the start of the announcement. The very reason they were here, and the very knowledge that could shake the very foundations of the Empire. Feeling the weight of the moment, Orson smiled. I wonder what faces they'll make when they find out who itis. He could already imagine it as his lips pulled up further. For some reason, he was starting to enjoy himself. More chapters in Buyer's Club for TMT. Chapter 768 Dance 2. I can tell that everyone here is excited for the upcoming announcement. I am too. Haha. Orson laughed, his voice reverberating through the now silent venue. No one joined in, not a forced smile, not a single laugh, leaving the atmosphere awkward. The usual forced laughs and smiles had vanished, replaced by a heavy, somber silence that settled over the room. Despite all of this, Orson didn't look at all offended. Instead, he seemed to enjoy the situation even more. All right, since no one seems inclined to listen to my ramblings, I'll start by introducing my daughter. Orson's gaze shifted to the long flight of stairs, a smile playing on his lips. Delilah, please come down. Everyone here wants to see you. The surroundings fell silent a moment later, until, tack, the soft click of a heel echoed through the venue, drawing every head toward the source of the sound. A woman soon appeared, her delicate hand brushing the handrail as she descended the stairs in a long black dress adorned with white patterns down the center. Her appearance immediately brought the breath of several people to a stop, as her appearance sucked the very air of the room. Not from the immense pressure coming out of her body, but from her appearance. With her black hair tied in a bun and her normally indifferent lips curved into an uncharacteristically soft smile, Delilah's presence brought the entire room to a standstill in that moment. It almost felt as though she wasn't human. ASFF. She belonged to a completely different dimension than everyone present. Tack-tack. Her heels clicked steadily as she descended the stairs, each step making the hearts in the room beat faster. Eventually, she stopped before Orson, the soft smile lingering on her lips as Orson looked at her with pride. "What do you think?" His words brought everyone out of their daze. But despite that, the silence lingered. No one said a word as Orson's gaze swept the surroundings. He assessed the situation, feeling a deep, almost intoxicating sense of control. Yet he knew he couldn't let it drag any longer. Still, he had set up a special moment for the announcement. With his gaze sweeping the surroundings, Orson began speaking again. "Next up, we will be holding a ball." "What? A ball? But what about the announcement? Are you playing with us?" His announcement immediately enticed a few protests. However, Orson ignored them as he continued to speak. "Before anyone rushes in to curse at me, this ball will be extremely important." Orson turned his attention towards Delilah. "The fiancé will be the one who can get her to dance with them." Immediately, the room turned rowdy. With a smile, Orson continued. "At the moment, the fiancé is running late. I'm not sure where they are. But if any of you can convince my daughter to dance with you, then it wouldn't be impossible to change the current fiancé." Orson actually knew where Julian was. In fact, he was already in the venue. Looking at him and seeing his frozen expression, Orson had to try his best to hold his laugh back. This wasn't something that he had arranged. It was, in fact, something that his daughter had proposed. He didn't realize the reason before, but it was starting to become clearer to him now. Nothing is set in stone until the official announcement. If anyone can convince her, then changes can be applied. The room grew even more rowdy following the announcement. The faces of several important figures grew solemn, with others staring in Delilah's direction with trembling gazes, their hearts beating out of their chest. Seeing the current atmosphere, Orson turned his attention towards the end of the room where a band had quietly moved in. Plus clap, clap, plus. Clapping his hands twice, he pointed towards the center of the venue, currently empty, as a quiet and nice tune drifted in the air. "With that said, shall we begin the ball? And please don't all rush my daughter at once. Each song allows for only 3 attempts per person. If anyone can convince her in those 3 attempts, then you'll be the most likely candidate for her new fiancé. Shall we get started?" The crowd shifted immediately at his words, noise spilling into the venue as everyone cast glances toward Delilah, searching for any sign of displeasure. But her soft, lingering smile told them all she consented to the arrangement. This made the hearts of many explode with excitement. She came from an incredibly powerful family, possessed great strength herself, and was breathtakingly beautiful. The dream of many men in the room, she drew an overwhelming number of suitors eager to take their chance. Plus da-da. As a soft tune began to play in the air, and the already established couples began to dance in the middle of the stage, the many eyes of those who wanted to take their chance fell on the Duke as he watched the ball with his hands behind his back. "This should make for a good impact, right?" "This is ridiculous," Aoife muttered, staring at Delilah from a distance. The entire situation felt ridiculous to her. It was obvious to her that the Duke was using this chance for some sort of scheme of his own. However, she had to admit that it was effective. "No, now is not the time for this." Aoife's eyes scanned the room until they landed on her brother. Her heart sank at the sight of him carefully polishing his clothes, as if preparing to step forward and approach Delilah. Wait, could it be true that he's the fiancé? Asaif's heart sank further as she watched her brother advance toward Delilah. She wanted to rush forward and stop him, but she knew doing so would only earn the Duke's resentment. In desperation, she settled her gaze over to Leon. "Handsome, talented, you go." "Ah, too." Leon's eyes widened. What did she just? "Try to approach the Chancellor. Seduce her if you must. You can't let my brother get to her. If he somehow manages to convince her, then stop." Leon placed his hands over her shoulders, forcing her to stop. He stared straight at her. "Calm down. I know that you're panicking, but there's nothing to panic about." Although Leon said that, he was panicking inside. Wasn't Julian supposed to be Delilah's fiancé? What was going on? Was this arranged by him? No, I don't think that this is something that Julian would arrange. If anything, where was Julian? Leon wanted to look around, but for now he had to calm Aoife down. "Just relax. Everything will be fine." "No, but even if we want to stop it, it's already too late." Leon's gaze fell towards Delilah and the man who stood before her. Aoife's face fell, and the entire venue paused for a short moment as the music continued to linger in the background. "Hello, it's a pleasure to meet you." John smiled in Delilah's direction, trying his best to calm his unevenly beating heart. Despite doing all of this for politically related matters, standing before Delilah, he couldn't help but feel his breath be taken away. Her beauty was simply overwhelming. "Hello," Delilah replied, her deep obsidian eyes lingering over to him. She didn't say anything and retained her soft smile. John took a small breath, sporting the best smile he could muster as he lowered his head slightly, extending his hand in her direction. "It would be my pleasure if you would take this chance to dance with me. I know I can't offer much, but I hope to become a great emperor someday. One who can help his citizens and end starvation. I had planned to take on such a monumental task alone, but after seeing you today, I realize I cannot achieve it by myself. I wish for you to be by my side in such a task." Lifting his head, John continued, "Your beauty has enamored me, and I can't see myself not being with you. Please take my hand, and I'll try my best to make sure you live the fate that you desire." The venue held its breath following his words. All eyes turned to Delilah as she gazed at his outstretched hand. One simple motion, just reaching for it, and the deal would be sealed. Plus, ba. Thump. Ba. Thumps plus. John's heart beat rapidly as he continued to stare at her, growing more and more captivated by her. The tension stretched for what felt like an eternity, every gaze fixed on Delilah. The longer she hesitated, the more it seemed that she was leaning toward agreement. Everyone felt this way. John wasn't just one of the leading candidates for emperor. He was also handsome and carried himself with grace. In the eyes of many, they seemed a match made in heaven. John also felt this way, his confidence growing by the second. "Yes, there's no better partner than me, I'm sure." His heart pounded louder with every passing second, each beat convinced of her agreement. The tension thickened, and finally Delilah's hand moved. John's heart skipped a beat. "Yes, yes, why? But no, thank you." Delilah's words poured cold water over him, his smile freezing on the spot. "Huh." His head flicked up in surprise. "What? What did you, 2-inch? "I said no," Delilah replied calmly, the smile on her face fading slightly. The room seemed to freeze. Though the music played on, the dancers had stopped, leaving only a tense stillness as all eyes turned to the prince, who struggled to grasp what was happening. "No, but I am the best person." "Why, who could?" "Sorry, Prince. It looks like you got rejected." The Duke stepped in not long after, seeing how the situation was turning, as he patted the prince on the shoulder. "For a moment I almost thought you had it. It's just unfortunate that you're not compatible with my daughter." "I see. It's unfortunate." The prince's jaw tightened so hard that the muscles started to show. However, he just barely held himself back as he looked at Delilah one last time and walked away not long after. Staring at his retreating back, the Duke clapped his hands once more. "Let's continue with the ball. If there are any more candidates, please step forward." The event continued. After several minutes of inactivity, someone else eventually joined in and asked Delilah for her hand. In the end, he was also rejected. This continued for the next several minutes, with more and more people getting rejected. Eventually, after witnessing so many rejections, most of the suitors stopped hesitating and began asking for her hand. After all, the worst she could do was say no. Even the prince started to feel a bit better after all of the rejections. Fresh chapters posted on n0v3l.fire.net. The dance also appeared more fluid, and the event progressed in a natural manner. The tension that had previously lingered not long after had faded, and a more jovial one replaced it. By now, everyone had given up on being accepted, and soon a certain person stepped up. The moment he appeared, a noticeable shift appeared on Delilah's face, one that was dismissed by everyone present as he stopped before her. Their eyes met, and Delilah's lips pulled into a soft and genuine smile. More chapters in Buyers Club for TMT. Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today.